Hi, welcome to the Best Mom Products Show where mompreneurs share their adventures in business. I'm your host, Rachel Olson. Today I'm chatting with Heidi Brown, the co-founder and CMO of OptionsAway. OptionsAway allows you to hold your flight for days or weeks while you finalize your travel plans. Prior to having kids, Heidi and her husband, and also co-founder, used to live in Europe and lead a jet-setting lifestyle of travel and fun. After having kids, they moved to Chicago, where she became a stay-at-home mom, but craved the lifestyle she used to have, which I can relate to. But as we all know, the disposable income and flexibility we had prior to kids is no longer as disposable or flexible as it used to be. OptionsAway won the Eye for Travel Innovation 2013. Previous winners include Hotel Tonight and Kayak, two very successful companies. Today we are going to learn how she solved the problem of generating new revenue for the travel industry while engaging with customers in a new way. Welcome, Heidi. Let's hear how you did it.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Before we dive into all of the business side of questions, let's talk a little bit about you have an 8 and a 10-year-old. You started this company in 2011. So can you talk about what it's like when you have kids that are kind of in that middle age range and how you manage their schedule?
Sure. Well, I always thought when I had babies and infants that it would get much, much easier, but it just changes. It's still difficult. There's a lot of scheduling to do. There are a lot of activities. I'm working downtown Chicago, and I'm living in the first little suburb called Oak Park. And so the after-school care is a bit of an issue for us, but we're lucky to live in a place that has wonderful options. But it still takes a lot of scheduling, and it's expensive. But so far it's going great. What's interesting about where we live is they actually moved the entire school day back. We start at 7:55 and end at 2:55, which I am not a morning person. So when I first heard that, I thought, I don't know. But the idea was to allow parents to only have to provide childcare at one end of the spectrum, which is after school.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about OptionsAway. I think I described a little bit of your aha moment, but if there was an exact moment where you felt you had this idea and decided to go for it.
A few years back, my kids were probably just starting school. I was a trader in my ex-life, and I made some good bonuses, and I put them in a bank account, and it was kind of earmarked for stay-at-home mom. And that was because my mom was a school teacher, but she stayed at home for my first, 6, 7, 8 years of life, and I thought it was great, and I just thought, I want to do that too. So my husband went to work, and I stayed at home. And then they were approaching the age where they would both start kindergarten, and I thought, okay, so what am I going to do? And it was around the time that we had a conference in London. My husband had a work conference, and I got to go with him, which was great. And I did my MBA there years ago. And so we had a lot of friends. We were in a hotel bar. It was so great. We were talking about the old times. And it just was one of those conversations late at night. And I said, how are we going to get back to that time where it was so fabulous and we could be spontaneous and be flexible? I mean, it's so difficult to do once you have kids. And also in the U.S., there's not a lot of, I would say, really inexpensive short flight carriers, whereas in Europe at the time, they were all popping up everywhere. So we would just, I lived in Germany, Rob lived in London, and we would go skiing. You hop on a flight, you're in Paris, and you go to Prague. It was great. And so we said, there's got to be a way. And I guess what I said to him, which was he repeats quite frequently, is I said, somebody told me once that you need to take what you really know very well and what you love, and you put that together, and you will come up with the ideal job.
It's interesting that you put your travel and your financial background together. So do you want to talk a little bit about how your product works and maybe on both sides, how it benefits the travel industry and how it benefits the user?
From a consumer standpoint, it's really quite simple. We sell one product, and that is options on airfare, which is basically a hold. So you find a price you like. On our website, we have the same inventory from the big suppliers, just like you would find on an Orbitz or a Kayak. So all the same prices. So once you find the destinations and the times and the prices that work for you, our site looks very much like a regular online travel agency. The one big difference is, beside the calendar situation, they'll pop up a series of buttons that allow you to hold your flight for 24 hours if you like to, or 3, 7, 14, or 21 days. And you pay a small fee. That fee does not go towards the price of the airline ticket. That fee goes towards just the convenience of locking in the price. And if you want to actually take the trip, you come back to our website or a new mobile app that will be coming out very soon, and you can book your flight. And if you decide not to go on the trip, you don't have to do anything. There's no cancellation. It just, what we say, it expires, which, as moms, I think that's great. There's no, do I get an email? What do I have to do? I mean, worst case scenario, you're out your $10 and, but you give the price. What's also really important that I just want to point out is it's a real win-win for consumers in the fact that if the price of the flight actually goes up, you are locked in at the lower price. And if the price of the flight actually goes down, you get the lower price. So You're hedged both ways.
Okay, great. Thanks for telling us a little bit about your product. Can you give us some examples?
If you're not sure where you want to go, when you want to go, or who you want to go with, this is a great option. So we have a lot of people booking flights. For example, you know that you can leave on a Friday night, but you're not sure if you can take it the Monday as well and have an extra long weekend. So we say, fine, book your outgoing flight and then buy 2 options, one for Sunday night, one for Monday night. We have some other examples where people will surprise their girlfriend and buy a ticket to San Francisco and New York City. And again, this is costing this person maybe, $30 for 2 holds for 4 people. And so, it's a fabulous, just kind of spontaneous way to say to someone, where do you want to go? And especially with sites now like Hotel Tonight and Airbnb, where it's getting easier for us to find places to stay at last minute, then, this kind of flexibility is really important. We've got people doing destination weddings. I mean, back in the day when you had to hold 30 flights for a wedding, you would, email or tell everybody, this is the day. Now you can actually buy an option for everyone and send out an email and say, the flight's held for 2 weeks, who's in? When I first started thinking about this, the target market was kind of, single people, a little more disposable income, 20s, 30s. And then I started to realize that most flights in the U.S., domestic anyway, are booked by women. And when somebody's booking a flight for their family, they're not booking 1 flight, they're booking 4 or 5 tickets. So very quickly I said, wait a minute, we have a very strong secondary target market here, which is moms.
Right.
So we kind of target the younger people, spontaneity and flexibility, whereas for the moms, it's really the convenience. Like if you're on your phone and you find a flight you like, you're not very likely to sit there and book 4 flights. It's a big ticket item in the lineup at the grocery store, but you might be likely to hit, hold now.
Your product benefits consumers. So how does it benefit the travel industry?
Sure. Well, we have 2 models actually. One is an agency model, which is where we're working under right now, what we're working under. And that is that I am a travel agency. I'm holding all the risk of the flight increasing. And what that does mean, though, is I get 100% of the revenue from the option price. So we are morphing into now an airline agency, which means we will strategically partner with different airlines, and there'll be a revenue share. So if we, again, sell an option at a $10 price, it could be a 50-50 split depending on the agreement. So why airlines would like that is because once a consumer has put even a small amount down, there's a bit of a commitment there. And the likelihood of them actually booking a flight on their airline increases. And airlines have not made a lot of money on airline seats lately. It's all extra revenue, which is actually plateaued. There's only so many bags and bottles of water you can sell, etc. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. The ancillary revenue is the sweet spot for the airlines right now. But again, even at that billions of dollar figure, it's still plateauing. So this is something that's completely new for them.
Is there anything proprietary about what you're doing? Can anyone else create this?
Well, we've been working on this for a couple of years, and the technology is relatively complex. Anything can be copied if someone had enough time, money, and resources. We do have access to a patent portfolio, which is specifically protects us against other people providing service of airline option. And there are a couple other players out there kind of doing it in a small way. United has a Fairlock product that is a little bit different than what we have, and there are a few other startups that are looking at it. But we're working with them. We talk to them, and we're hoping that everybody on board will help educate the public, because that's really a big challenge for us. It's not that a competitor is going to come in. I mean, if someone wants to spend marketing dollars educating the public that you can actually hold a flight, they should go for it. That would make me very happy.
Where do you find yourself with that? I mean, I think that I had mentioned, which you had told me about, is winning this I for Travel Innovation Award. How much publicity and marketing did you get when you won that award? I mean,
that one particularly was very industry focused, but it got out to a lot of the industry, which is great. I for Travel is, one of the few very big travel conferences. We recently won something else called Piranha Tank, which is, a version of a Shark Tank, and that was put on by some venture capital companies. So that got us a lot of attention kind of in the fundraising world, which was nice. And then we've had a lot of press around startups and local and Chicago and whatever. So all the press categories are very different, but we're getting quite a bit, which is great. I think a lot of people think the newness of it is fabulous. A lot of travel bloggers are interested because, I mean, there's so much travel content out there, but it's a lot of the same old. I mean, 10 best beaches,
Right.
So this is actually something new, and people don't seem to feel like it's a price gouge like they would from another service from an airline. It's kind of, hey, this is cool. I'm willing to pay for it, because now I'm flexible.
I want to ask you, and we talked quite a bit about this on the phone call we had months ago, is that, you were self-funded and then you asked friends and family for money. Anytime you're dealing with asking for money from somebody close to you, that can be hard. So is there anything that you can share about that process and your approach?
When I tell people, I raised money through friends and family, because the people weren't really my friends, nor were they my family. I tried to keep a 1 degree of separation. I had some friends from the banking industry put money in, my accountant, my university professors, people like that, versus, going to our parents or our neighbors, or, because the stress level for me would have just been too high. So it's interesting. There's a lot of people who are interested in investing, even in small amounts. So if you can take your denominations low enough, people are interested in investing, just like they would in the stock market. It's becoming more and more normal, to invest in a startup. Then it's high risk, but everyone should have a little bit of that in their portfolio.
I wanted to ask you, when you say small denominations, I think the typical angel investment is, at least in the Silicon Valley world that I had come from, it kind of expected at $25,000, maybe 50. So when you say small denomination, can you give me a number? Are you talking like 5,000, or what is your?
No, I was actually talking 25. 25 is the lowest.
Okay.
So I understand it's all relative.
Right.
But a lot of people won't take less than 100. It does get messy. We're got more spreadsheets than I know what I'm doing with in terms of, but yeah, it seems a lot. It seems a lot easier asking someone over for dinner, for $25,000. Now it's a little different. Now that I'm actually launched and I have a product and I have press and I have industry interest, it's a different conversation than it was a few years ago where I had an idea.
What was the approach you used when you said, you're an accountant and a business school professor? Did you just reach out to them in an email and say, I have an idea that I want to talk to you about? Did you have, the term sheet ready and available? Or how did you approach those initial conversations?
We wrote up a business plan and had a term sheet available. It's been tweaked multiple times. And to be honest, each situation was different. We had some dinners with people, and just started the conversation. at one point, so I started this business and my husband had kind of a Wall Street job that he went to every day and we would work on it. The big joke is date night, but it really was and still is. There's a lot of evenings and weekends. And when we started getting investor interest and industry interest, and we started actually visiting airlines, we brought someone on our team who'd been in the airline industry for years and was getting us, C-level interviews at airlines, which is just not heard of in the startup world. So when that started to happen, my husband's interest just peaked phenomenally, and he ended up quitting his job, and he came on as CEO, and he concentrates a lot on the fundraising, and so. But back to your original question, every instance is different. So he would, have meetings with the bankers he knew. I knew some people from the trading world, and because this is a trading product, and a lot of options traders in Chicago, they were everywhere. And they've got a little cash in the bank. So that's a pretty easy sell. We really like to have some smart money, some travel industry specific. So that's what we're going after next. And in terms of business school professors and people like that, I think we just did send emails or we picked up the phone and we said, you know us. We're not 20-year-olds, which so many people in startups are, and that's fabulous. But we've kind of been around a little bit, and these people know us, and they know our style, and they know our success to date. And we just said, have a little faith in us, and we'll make you proud, and we'll make you some money.
Can you talk maybe a little bit about what do you consider to date your biggest challenge that you've had with coming from the idea to building this business and to getting some interest in funding? What would you say is the hardest thing to overcome, and how did you overcome that?
The biggest challenge, I would say, is the marketing expense, customer acquisition, but specifically with my product is education. Because again, it's so new that people just don't understand. They say, well, how can you do that? You can't do that. I mean, I hear this response umpteen times, just that airlines won't let you do that. Well, the airlines don't have anything to say about it. We launched our website and we were all excited. And there's a term, maybe I didn't know, it's called crickets. And that's after you launch and then just nothing happens. And that happened to us. We were all very, very excited. We thought there would be, thousands of people purchasing holds on flights on the first day. That didn't happen. A couple of our friends trickled in. And then eventually we got email lists going and social media going. And we've only been launched for a few months. So, I mean, to compete with the big online travel agencies, there's just no way that we're going to be able to ever have enough marketing dollars to do that, which is why we have always wanted to evolve into more of a B2B product. So we launched a great, in my opinion, B2C product. We've had, a good amount of customers. People are very excited. But eventually, if we want to scale, we'll have to have some strategic partnerships. My dream would just be to have a little, button on every travel agency website that said, look, if you're not ready to commit, why don't you just hold it for a few hours?
What tips do you have for mom entrepreneurs that are looking at you and saying, wow, she got this award, she brought it to market, she's following her dream?
I wouldn't recommend going the no income route like I did. Something I would have thought was a great idea before I had kids and a mortgage, because it just adds an extra level of stress. But I think managing expectations and keeping them realistic. I mean, our project started small and it's now just starting to scale. But I think if anybody thinks they're going to be, running a big company from their home and having, their kids and all these activities and their marriage perfect and friendships and family, it's just too much. So you just kind of, I think it's like anything else. You prioritize, you pick a few things that are really important to you. I don't do other than this startup and my marriage and my very close family and a few friends and children. I don't do a lot. There's absolutely no TV. There's not a lot of time for reading. And, the irony is we got into this business so we could travel more. And I haven't been anywhere in almost 2 years. So fingers crossed, that'll change soon.
Oh my gosh, that's great. I love that. Thank you. That's great advice. Thank you. So, how about we move on and you want to share a few favorites with us? You just mentioned that, you don't really have much time for books. Was there a favorite book that you have?
I would say my favorite book that was relative is We Need to Talk About Kevin. It's been out for quite a while now. I'm not sure if you know that book.
I don't.
And the reason I think that's so interesting is I read it when I was pregnant, and I thought, something like this would never happen to me. And I've thought about it many, many times over the past few years that, your children are not just creatures there that you can mold into whatever you want them to be. And that the DNA lottery is extraordinary. And, I have to just find myself every day giving up a little control, saying, I created that person, but I don't control that person. And so I'm not sure why that came to mind, but I enjoyed it and I think about it a lot.
That's interesting. I've not heard that. I've got to check that out. I guess the last one would be, is there a certain motivational quote that you have or a mantra that you live by or something you really like that is inspiring to you?
Thinking of one now that, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's Truman Capote, and it's something about failure condiment that makes success taste so sweet. Something like that.
Wow, look, you just pulled that one right out of thin air. That's great.
Well, I'm thinking about that a lot lately too, because it really is, a lot of highs and lows. I mean, winning the competitions and speaking in front of large crowds, and those are all the really high moments. But then, there's legal problems and bills to pay and development issues, and so
Right.
it's a very extreme lifestyle. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it is. And I'm glad that you shared that because I feel like that's really the reality of being an entrepreneur. And it's an emotional roller coaster, not just a whole life roller coaster. So very interesting. Well, thank you for sharing. I'll have to check those out. And for our viewers and listeners, I'll include all the items mentioned in this interview in our show notes. I'd love to hear your feedback, so shoot me an email at Rachel, Rachel, at bestmomproducts.com and share your opinion. If you enjoyed our show, please share your comments on our website at bestmomproducts.com. You can sign up for our newsletter while you're there to keep up to date on the latest and greatest interviews and tips from entrepreneurs and experts. So thank you for listening. And Heidi, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.